Good morning. We're gonna get started. Tina one, calling the meeting to order. You get me instead of Lauren. I'm not as friendly as Lauren. All right, so the only welcoming remark that I have this morning is that Lauren is not here. I am running the meeting this morning in her absence. She did have a beautiful little baby girl, Isabella, and she is enjoying maternity leave. So she will be back with us for our next meeting. Okay, so the meeting minutes did go out from the April 9th meeting, and I'm hoping everyone had an opportunity to take a look. Are there any issues with the minutes as presented? Do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll move.
A second.
I'll second.
All in favor?
I second.
Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Okay. Moving on to committee reports, our Domestic Violence Coordinating Council report by Amy Bollinger-Smith.
Hi, good morning, everyone. DVCC meeting happened last Friday, so we are grateful to the Sheriff's Department for their speaker. Lieutenant Walter Reese and Renee Nelson spoke about the role of officers in circuit court and serving protection orders. We have great news about our conference. Everything is booked in terms of the venue at Hilton Gardens in White Marsh. It's going to be on September 20th. We have approved 6 workshops. Those workshops will be offered in the morning and in the afternoon. Ms. Roberta Roper is going to be the keynote speaker in the morning. We've got Officer George Massini doing the keynote in the afternoon. And backed by popular demand is Mr. Jamal Moses, who will do that lunchtime self-care for line workers. So it's a full day. We're working right now on getting CEUs approved for social workers. We know that nurses also attend and want CEUs, so we're trying to work on that. That's a little more challenging for us since we're a social work agency. So, but we're trying to figure it out. That's it.
Okay, any questions? Thank you, Amy. The Forensic Mental Health Work Group, Tanya Smith. Updates.
Good morning. We had our meeting on May the 8th, and I really don't have anything to add. Our meeting is not as robust as the domestic violence. So therefore, we basically just do updates from each program. We are still struggling with the inmates awaiting transfer to the state hospitals. We have 2. You get that list from me every week.
Yeah.
We did have 3 people that was transferred on yesterday, so that's good.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay, moving on to presentations. So we're still with the substance abuse presentations, and I believe Police Department is up first if you're ready. Okay.
Go to the next slide, please. Good morning. I'm Lieutenant Mike Sansosti. I'm the commander of the narcotics unit. Just going to give you a quick little breakdown of what we're seeing throughout the county, narcotics wise, as well as overdoses and how we respond to overdoses. Next slide, please. So the basically for the narcotics section, the county, we've divided into half between the east and the west side. Precincts 1, 2, 3, 4, and 7 are considered the west side. East side is precincts 6, 8, 9, and 11, and 12. Within the narcotics unit, we have major case east and major case west. They deal with mid to upper level narcotics traffickers. We do wiretaps and extensive prolonged investigations with the major case teams. There's also east and west, what we call CDUs, which are community drug units. They handle low to mid-level complaints as well as community-based complaints. They work closely with the precincts, and they do a lot of street stuff, on-view investigations and things like that. The main narcotics office is located up in Hunt Valley. That's where the major case teams work out of. But we also have the vice unit, diversion unit, as well as analysts and our heroin coordinators out of there. Next, please. So, just like everybody within the police department, we're dealing with, personnel shortages here and there. So what we did to combat that, we realigned our schedules to ensure that we can, maintain coverage around the clock, as well as have enough personnel to handle undercover operations as well as search warrants and things like that to be able to do that safely. We still maintain on-call status. An officer will respond to any overdose call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So we're able to do that. Like I said, we work with each other. The different squads kind of merge together to get the job done. And we work with other CIB Criminal Investigation Bureau teams as well. We'll bring them in, for instance, if we're hitting a location for a raid that looks like there's going to be guns, we'll bring the gun squad, and we collaborate well together with them. And also, we're the main hub for phone analysis, and a lot of other units will reach out to us to assist them with downloading phones or plotting and charting things with phones for investigations. Next, please. So just a quick look on the workload. So the community drug units that I spoke of, in 2023, they had 138 felony clearances with 83 arrests. They had 71 misdemeanor cases with 45 arrests. They were assigned a total of 404 narcotics complaints. They did 80 undercover operations, 54 search warrants, and seized $454,000 as well as 30 firearms. Major case teams, they cleared 36 felony cases with 81 arrests, 7 misdemeanor cases with 22 arrests. They were assigned 163 cases, did 35 undercover operations, 122 search warrants, and seized roughly $1.3 million and seized 175 firearms. So for the first quarter of 2024, just a snapshot of first 3 months. So far, the entire unit has cleared 43 felony cases with 47 arrests, 19 misdemeanor cases with 5 arrests. They've been assigned 136 cases, 54 undercover operations so far, 70 search warrants, and roughly $140,000 with 50 firearms seized. Next, please. So as for narcotics that we're seizing, in 2023, heroin about 14 ounces, fentanyl around 6 kilograms, cocaine 38 kilograms, marijuana 1,700 pounds, methamphetamine about 4.5 pounds. I'll get into meth in a second here, but that's more of the pill size. It's not the crystal meth or whatever that is making big drive. That's pills. And then the bottom ones, MDA, opioids, and all that's all pills that's been seized. We seized 205 firearms and roughly 108 or $1.8 million in currency. Next, please. So cannabis continues to be on the forefront of everything. Just what we're seeing with that. Since May of 23 to May of 24, there have been 331 county-wide calls for service of marijuana where it was listed in the comments calls. They range from overdoses, disturbances, drug use, possession, and trespassing. Interesting to see that Baltimore County has 18 cannabis dispensaries as registered legal businesses in the county. And we see a lot of violent crime that we can attribute to cannabis use and sales. So for the state of Maryland, just as an overview of everything, calls to poison control since the inception of marijuana with edibles and everything like that, we're seeing a lot of that leak into the schools, whether it's candy bars that are infused with marijuana or if it's gummies. There's a lot of things that are going on with the schools with that because it's so easily obtained now. Next, please. So we found this interesting too, that it seems like there's been a shift of the general public obviously thinking as well as marijuana not being too harmful. Frequency of use is up, the perceived efficacy is up, the one I found disturbing was the pregnancy while breastfeeding is gone up to 3/4 of. Drug driving is up, medical use and safe storage is down, which is unfortunate where, I think before it would be locked up or secured, and this is where we're having the problem with children, getting their hands on it. Next, please. So methamphetamines, abuse in Maryland is pretty limited. We're not seeing it that often, although we have had some recent cases that we've dealt with, but it's more on the possession level as opposed to the distribution. In the past 20 years or so, there's been 5 or 10 methamphetamine production operations in Baltimore County. Most, like I said, are user quality. The largest quantities that would be coming in that people would be considered on the dealer side, it's usually coming from out of state through the mail. Next, please. So cocaine is the most abused drug in Baltimore County. In 2018, we began to see fentanyl mixed with cocaine. Prior to that, fentanyl was only seen being mixed with heroin. Since 2018, we've had 61 fatal overdoses where it was a fentanyl and cocaine mixture. Next, please. So our overdoses in 2023, we ended with 220 fatals, 717 non-fatals. And of the 220 fatals, 185 were fentanyl related, where it was the mixture. So far this year, we're sitting at 65, which is down 20%. Non-fatals are at 153, which is down 42%. And fentanyl related ones at 39, which is down 46%. Now that fentanyl related one's a little bit misleading because if it's an overdose that goes to the medical examiner's office, we have to wait for the toxicology to come back. So that number is a little bit delayed before, on the reporting of that one. Next, please. So the decrease that we're seeing, just the theory that we're seeing the availability in Narcan is no doubt helping. We go to a lot of places where if it's an overdose, they've actually, dispensed the Narcan or they do have Narcan there. So having that has been a game changer. There's been a lot more awareness brought to it through commercials, radio ads, and signage. And like I said, the Good Samaritan law where people are told to call and they won't face criminal prosecution for misdemeanor use and stuff like that, I think is helped as well. Next, please. So when responding to fatal overdoses, like I said earlier, Vice Narcotics Detective will respond 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. And when they arrived at the scene, they examine the overall scene for evidence of drug usage. They look to collect any cell phones that the victim had, and everybody that's there or was there and left is tracked down, and they are interviewed extensively in reference to overdose. Next, please. So the best way we found to handle these are develop an independent investigation, which weighed in the prosecution as opposed. There's a lot of thoughts, about, prosecuting if we're able to identify somebody that looks like that they sold to this person or whatever. It's the more successful prosecutions for us that we've seen have come through the independent investigation where we can examine the phone and develop a suspect and hopefully do undercover operations to buy from them and make a case that way. Next. So for us, the big thing, like I said, is cell phone. We'll download the cell phone, get text messages, pictures, whatever, examine that. And then we may get called retail records through the phone company, trace some things back that way to identify a possible target of our investigation. Next. We'll use a lot of times, we'll do informants to do controlled buys for us into a target, or we'll actually do undercover operations where a detective will actually buy narcotics from the target. Next. And then our goal at that, after progressing through that, is to develop a search warrant for the target's location and then obviously arrest and prosecution. Next. So for us, it's critical to work as a team and work with other develop relationships with local, state, and federal partners. For overdose tracking and statistics, we have a Maryland grant-funded heroin coordinator that works out of the Vice Narcotics section. They review every overdose report that comes in and enter it into an internal database that was developed in the narcotics unit. Any multiple non-fatal overdose victims are identified and their names are provided to the health department for intervention efforts. Statistics on the victim information is provided to the health department on a monthly basis for programs that they're working on over there. If there are hot spots or trend areas where overdoses are up, that information is provided to a narcotics supervisor, and targeting efforts will go toward enforcement there. Next. So for us, a lot of things that we work with for the federal partners are dealing with Homeland Security investigations, or HSI, and the DEA. We have 8 Baltimore County detectives that are Baltimore County detectives, but they're signed full-time to these federal task force. So if we have cases, a lot of times our detectives will have a case that may cross into different states or whatever. They'll be able to reach out to these DEA or HSI TFOs to assist with making connections with different groups in the other states, or they obviously have more latitude to be able to assist us with developing cases and closing them. Next, please. So, any questions?
I just want to thank Lieutenant Sansasti and Colonel and the Major for being here and putting this presentation together. I would like to comment the fact that in the police department, like all law enforcement, we have a lot of vacancies. But I commend our Criminal Investigations Bureau, where we carry the most vacancies, and especially our narcotics section, where we carry the most vacancies yet. We saw no drop off or efficiency or effectiveness in the unit. I've told you over and over, I commend the job that you guys were doing.
Thank you.
It's just tremendous. A couple things that really stick out for me day to day, and I'll ask Meg to comment about it, but it's interesting just being out in the street and talking to people, the age of people who were actually overdosing. But the interesting thing is seeing people who were young drug abusers who used especially crack cocaine at a young age, got away from using drugs, but are actually going back to using drugs in their old age. I mean, you're talking people in their upper 50s, 60s, and some in their early 70s. So it's an interesting phenomenon to see. And the big thing for me is, once again, the marijuana usage. It's just incredible in the level of violence that we continue to see, especially associated to our homicides across the whole county. So, thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Any questions for the police department? Thank you very much for your presentation. All right, next we have Circuit Court Drug Treatment Court. Anyone here to present?
Yes.
Okay, great. Hi.
Hi, good morning. My name is Shonda Johnson, and I am the coordinator for the Family Recovery Support Program. So I'll give you a brief overview because there we go. The Family Recovery Support Program is a voluntary program, and we're actually non-adversarial for the parents of who suffer with substance use disorder, but they all have to have active center or custody cases. We provide incentive-based approaches as well as family engagement activities. We promote parent-child bonding, self-care activities, mental well-being, and life skills training. We also hold on, oh yeah. We provide a lot of incentives to our parents because they don't see the value sometimes in themselves. So when we point that out to them, it helps them move forward. Next slide. Our mission is to preserve those families who suffer with substance use disorders. We want to strengthen those bonds between the parent and the child. We reinforce those healthy parenting styles and lifestyles. And we increase their self-awareness. Well, we attempt to increase their self-awareness, self-respect, and self-esteem. We do that by offering parenting classes, financial wellness, self-care classes, self-defense classes, life skills, and some of those things actually come with college credit. It's a 10-month program. It's 4 phases. There are specific requirements through each phase, and as they move through those phases, they are incentivized. But these things are consistent that are listed above. They have to submit to random drug testing. They have to comply with their treatment provider. They are required to attend their peer support groups. They complete phase packets through those phases, which help them follow their goals. So their initial packet is what they hope to achieve by the end of the program. So that's what those phase packets are. They complete them through phase 1, phase 2, and phase 4, all the way up until graduation. So these here are our current numbers. I am not a numbers person. I believe in quality, not quantity. However, to keep our stats up, we actively recruit all the time. Right now we have 14 active participants. We have had, well, you see how many are in each phase. What we have for today, so those numbers will change as of today because we have people moving through the phases and one actually graduating today. Back in 2023, we had 5 who graduated successfully. We've had 4 who were administratively discharged in the last year. That basically means that they were not a good fit for the program. They weren't ready to focus on their recovery or their sobriety, and they weren't interested in getting their kids back. We have one who did overdose, who is deceased. We received a ton of referrals, but because the program is voluntary, they have to want to come in and do what they need to do to either get their kids back, build their relationships with their kids, or achieve sobriety. 22 observations, which we've only had 16 admissions, dating from January 2023 to May 31st, 2024. Next slide. So our participant highlights. So depending on our phases, they're tested between 2 to 8 times per month. And because we don't really sanction them, some of our minimum sanctions are increasing those testing, well, the number of times that they test. If they test positive, or if they miss a hearing, or if they don't go to treatment, or anything of that nature. So all of our participants are in substance use treatment. They have to be 100% are actively engaged with their children, whether it's supervised visits, unsupervised visits, as well as being assigned a peer. Over half of our participants receive mental health treatment, and a good portion are employed. Family engagement events. So this is where all the money goes, to all of our fun events for our families. And some of them aren't so fun, like financial wellness and things of that nature. Those are just the life skills that they need to complete. I wrote down some things because I didn't want to forget anything, but of course I am. We have Family Fun Day, which all of the families are invited. They're welcome to invite extended family, meaning grandparents, the absent parent, things of that nature. We have Christmas parties where we support the parents in providing Christmas gifts for their kids. And we actually give them something for themselves too, so they feel special because sometimes they feel left out. We do the Aquarium, Science Center, and Zoo, and that gives them the opportunity to bond with their children outside of normal visitation and something that they may otherwise not have been able to afford. We also have the book program. When their kids are in foster care, one book goes to foster care, one book goes to the parent. So that parent is allowed to read bedtime stories to their children over Zoom or however they communicate. And lastly, I don't have another slide, but lastly, we do all of these things as a team. So it is myself, a case manager, of course, our overseeing magistrate, the health department, peer support, Office of Public Defender, Department of Social Services, CASA, and then we have a couple of people who have private programs who support our program as well. And we take referrals from the Department of Social Services. Of course, we coach some ourselves from sitting on hearings. Treatment providers, mediation, we take referrals from the bench, attorneys, family services, and they can also self-refer. Some of our participants have referred some of their friends into the program, which is wonderful. And finally, we have created an alumni group for some of our participants who have graduated because they refused to leave the program. So we found a way to keep them engaged. And that's all.
Great, thank you. Any questions? I think there's another
Yes.
circuit. Okay, great, go ahead.
So I'm Jessie Free. I'm the drug court coordinator for the circuit court. I think I know most of you. The drug court is also a voluntary, non-adversarial, judicially supervised program for felony offenders in Baltimore County. The goal of the program, of course, is to reduce drug dependency, to decrease drug-related crime, and to help the participants achieve self-sufficiency and become responsible members. Next slide. We accept referrals through judges, the PD's office and private bar, the state's attorney's office, parole and probation. Corrections has been a big one for us. We're working with law enforcement at the different precincts to kind of expedite the referral process if we can, and of course, different treatment providers. Next slide. Some of the disqualifying factors, things that might keep you out of the circuit court program, of course, would be under 18, not having the charges in Baltimore County, prior convictions for crimes of violence, charges for arson, child abuse, child pornography, sex offense or weapons offenses, registered sex offenders or offenders with gang affiliations, open cases in other jurisdictions or warrants. When we get a referral, it goes to both the state's attorney's office and Division of Parole and Probation for them to do a legal eligibility screening, is what we call, to determine their eligibility for the program. Next slide, please. Once somebody is determined to be eligible for the program is post-plea, pre-sentence. The case gets set in for a plea hearing. There is a drug treatment court contract that is signed at the plea hearing, that's signed by the assistant state's attorney, the referring defense attorney, the judge, and the participant. And the contract outlines what charges the participant is pleading guilty to, the sentence recommendation of the state in the event of a successful completion, or if they are unsuccessful. So going into the program, they kind of know what's at stake. They know what's going to be recommended if they successfully complete and what would happen if they were not successful. Next slide, please. Once they enter drug court, it is a minimum of 16 months, and it is divided into 4 very distinct phases. Next slide. Those phases are as listed. Each one has its own unique requirements and time minimums to get through. Although it is a minimum of 16 months, we're seeing that takes about an average of 18 months for folks to get through. You can go to the next slide, please. Lots of different things go into the drug court. Of course, there's the eligibility and screening and plea admission that I touched on. We have our own probation agent that does community supervision and monitoring. Everybody gets a treatment assessment, and they start at the level of treatment that their ASAM assessment dictates. There's med management and peer support, incentives and sanctions. They have 12-step meetings and treatment and workbooks. There's curfew checks, mental health. There's all kinds of things go into the program on top of just the treatment. You can go to the next slide, please. Due to the lack of licensed residential treatment housing in the county, we actually have most of our participants living in all of the counties that you see listed there. Twice a year, the Office of Problem Solving Courts, who oversees our program, does procedural justice surveys where, they engage with the actual participants to see what their view of the program is. And historically, our program has ranked over 90% approval from even the defendants that are in the program. Everybody gets an average of 2 drug tests a week. Sometimes there's more, sometimes there's less. 100% of our participants that are not incarcerated at the moment are engaged in substance use disorder treatment, and over 80% are actively engaged with their mental health, and 100% of them are receiving non-clinical case management, peer support, and ancillary services. We can go to the next slide, please. Our program started in September 2021, taking folks into the program. As of today, we have 30 active participants broken down by phase. We have 5 referrals we're working on. We've had 10 people graduate the program, 7 that were terminated for non-compliance, 1 person administratively discharged due to some very severe health issues, but he's still very connected to our program. And our last full calendar year, we received 32 referrals for the program. You can go to the next slide. Some of the numbers that I was given recently from OPSC, or I guess their most recent numbers, in regard to the benefits of drug treatment court, is there was a cost savings analysis, the most recent one that was done on adult drug treatment courts in the state of Maryland, and it saved over $21 million in 2 years alone. That's an average of $14,352 in savings for every participant that entered an adult drug treatment court in the state of Maryland. We fill in the gaps in services, and another thing that I'd like to point out too is, nationally, drug courts have a 75% higher success rate than just somebody traditionally going through treatment by themselves. Next slide.
Any questions? Okay, wonderful. Thank you, Circuit Court. Moving on to District Court, drug treatment courts.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Judge Davis, and I'll be presenting on our adult recovery court program. So if we could, thank you. So we all know that many individuals living in our community are living with substance use disorder and have difficulty leading productive lives. But what happens when they become court involved? Next slide, please. So the adult recovery court program in the district court is a specialty court that provides specialized supervision for court-involved individuals with substance use disorder. It is designed to reduce recidivism, promote stabilization and maintenance of sobriety, and to also promote productive engagement in the community. Next slide. So requirement-wise, defendants must be competent to be eligible for referral for the adult recovery court program. And it's a voluntary program, and defendants must elect to become part of the program and enter the program. The participants or prospective participants are screened for eligibility first by our problem-solving court coordinator. If the coordinator determines that the person is eligible, then the referral is forwarded to the Office of the State's Attorney, and we have Ms. Boritz here. Ms. Boritz and Ms. Fuller are the ones who screen for eligibility with respect to the criteria for the State's Attorney's Office. And once the person is deemed to be eligible by the problem-solving court coordinator and the state, then the defendant will speak with the state through counsel. They'll discuss what the person's options are as far as how they wish to enter the program, which we'll discuss a little bit later. And the person will enter the program, and if they deem it an appropriate option, and receive specialized supervision and resources. We also have 4 phases for our program. I did not list them there, but our 4 phases are: first, assessment and stabilization; 2, engagement and treatment; 3, pro-social habilitation; and 4, recovery, maintenance, and relapse prevention. Our team consists of the judge, the assistant state's attorney, the panel public defender or private counsel, case manager, And we also have a dedicated parole and probation agent that was assigned to our program, that is Agent Montgomery. And what I really think is unique is that oftentimes, even if a person is not placed on probation, as a way that they've entered the program, Agent Montgomery is still rather engaged with them to provide resources, services, and information so that they can have all of the information and resources that they need for success in the program. Next slide, please. So here are the eligibility requirements, and I'll note that at the bottom, it does say that the criteria can be waived on a case-by-case basis. However, the person must be a county resident, and that's one that sometimes we're not sticklers for that, because sometimes with housing and programming, people are in programs that are not in Baltimore County, but as long as they have accessibility to case management and probation supervision, if that is the means by which they've entered the program, we're not strict with that. We just want them to have accessibility to program resources and supervision. Must be an adult over the age of 18. Evidence of a substance use disorder, whether diagnosed or undiagnosed, and the pending case by which we're reviewing for entry must have evidence that a substance use disorder exists. So a pending charge, history of offenses or convictions that are related to or influenced by the offender's substance use or disorder. Also, violations of probations for allegations for non-technical violations of probation related to influence by substance use disorder. Those are interesting in the sense that typically people are coming into the program with new cases and they already have a probation, so it's triggered a violation of probation. Not that they're coming into the program as a result of a violation of probation, but violations of probation are considered in that manner. Next slide. So here are the parties that are ineligible for participation, and you'll see on the next slide that this criteria is reviewed on a case-by-case basis. But those under the age of 18, those that are eligible for diversionary programming or lesser restrictive means of supervision. And I want to stop there for just one moment. We take participants who screen high risk, high need. And why is that? Because studies have shown over the course of time that offenders who don't require high levels of supervision and high levels of provision of resources, you can do more harm to those individuals who require less supervision. When you put them into programming like this, because of the level of supervision and also because of the interaction with high risk, high need participants. So we take only high risk, high need participants. And so those who are eligible for diversionary program or less restrictive supervision aren't eligible. So for example, if a person screens low risk, low need, they would not come in despite what their charges may reflect. They wouldn't be eligible because they don't require this type of programming. Offenders identified as dealer for profit and with no substance use dependence diagnosis. Registered sex offenders, those with ongoing gang affiliation, active detainers or warrants. Offenders with substance use assessment that does not indicate substance use disorder. So when our program coordinator does the screening, if the person doesn't screen for substance use disorder, then they would be eligible for other types of supervision, but this program would not benefit those types of parties. Offenders with severe mental health issues that are not able to be managed in the community-based mental health treatment program. Well, a lot of the providers are able to service dual diagnosis, but those who cannot be managed in a community-based environment, even if they're treating substance abuse as well as mental health, if they can't be managed, then that person may not screen for participation in the program. Next slide. Offenders who are unwilling to participate voluntarily. We do not force anyone to participate. And we also require that those who are referred have counsel to assist them with understanding the requirements, understanding the options, and counsel will also engage the state in determining the path in which the person will enter the program, and counsel engages in those negotiations. So even if a person is self-referred, we encourage that person to then obtain counsel so that counsel can speak with the state and help the person to understand and navigate even the participant agreement so that a person is fully informed as for the program requirements as well as any plea negotiations. If there are any other unresolved criminal charges in another jurisdiction, they won't be eligible. Any DUIs or DWIs that are only referring to alcohol consumption. So if there's a DUI that also refers to CDS or a DUI that has an attendant CDS charge, then that person would be eligible. But if it's only DUI alcohol or DWI alcohol, that person would not be eligible. Current or pending offense is a domestic violence matter in nature. Any person who has a history of violent offenses within 5 years prior to the referral being made. And then we have a list of violent offenses there. I won't read them all, but they are the normal violent offenses as defined by statute. All right, so the areas of focus for our recovery court, substance use has to be the primary diagnosis. Can be dual diagnosis with mental health, but substance abuse must be primary. And so we provide resources, but using a holistic approach, because we know that it's not only substance use treatment, which is inpatient or intensive outpatient, phasing down to outpatient, that is offered. However, housing, employment, insurance, help with obtaining insurance, as well as treatment or therapy for co-occurring disorders. One of our providers we actually use, we found on, I believe it was the meeting that the detention center has on Wednesday afternoons.
The reentry
The reentry council, yes. And so a lot of really great providers are, we've received resources that way. One of the providers has been really helpful, not only with our parties from entering the program with mental health disorders for our mental health court, but also with co-occurring. So as far as housing, employment, they've been really helpful also with insurance as well, working with parties who require services, who may not have insurance most readily, but still assisting. And a lot of the providers will assist in that way. So we're grateful for that. So also, as I indicated, parties with mental health disorders, as long as mental health disorders are the secondary diagnosis, those parties will enter the program and primarily receive resources for substance use disorder. But as we know, most providers provide resources for both and treatment for both substance use disorder and mental health disorders. Next slide. So here are the ways in which the parties can enter our program. First, pretrials. So if a person is referred and based on their history, based on the charges, and counsel speaks with the state, defense counsel speaks with the state, a party can enter the recovery court program prior to trial, and upon successful completion, receive a null pros or stet, and keep their record clean as far as the charges are concerned, but also receive great resources and treatment and therapy and support while they're maintaining sobriety as going through the program. Also post plea. So if a person enters a plea, they won't be sentenced until they successfully complete or are terminated from the program. And we also have one post sentence option as well. And the party will plead guilty, be placed on probation, and their probation is conditioned on their successful completion of the program. And so we've had so far 2 graduates from our program. One was post plea, and despite the participant's record, The participant received probation before judgment upon completion. She's doing very, very well. We're very, very proud of her. And we also had one post-sentence graduate as well. And again, doing extremely well. We have one participant in the program right now. Next slide. Any questions? I would encourage you, if you would like to see our court operate, we have our court on the 2nd and 4th Tuesdays of the month. In fact, we are sitting today. So that's our program. Any questions?
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Before we go over to the state's attorney's office, the sign-in sheet is here. Has anyone not had an opportunity to sign in? Walt on this end. Thanks. Yeah, sure. All right, state's attorney's office.
So, when you go fifth after 4 really good presentations, you get to say, yeah, what they all said. So, there's not much to add because you did hear from the experts, but I'll throw a couple things out there. One of the things the chief mentioned that has always astounded me, but constantly gets reaffirmed, is every murder case I've ever seen over drugs is over marijuana. It always happens. So if you remember the Trader Joe's killing that happened in the parking lot, marijuana. A couple weeks after that, the car that crashed near the credit union, it went into that guy's apartment, loaded with marijuana. It's absolutely amazing. And one of the things that is really amazing is that the legalization really hasn't changed that aspect of it. Because my belief is because there's still money to be made. And so I'm not exactly sure how we solve that problem or get to the bottom of that problem, but it's really an interesting factor. So one of the reasons that the numbers that go into drug court are so low, you're looking at it, you're like, 8 people, come on. Well, honestly, as my friend Mr. Dills will probably almost admit, drug court is a lot of work. And a lot of defense lawyers know that they don't want to set their client up for failure. And so a lot of times they'll say, well, we'll just take the regular plea and, get through regular probation and not work as hard with drug court. But I don't want to take that away because you have to do the kind of work that you all have been watching for the last couple of minutes. You have to do that kind of work to really get to the true treatment issues and solve the problems that that the folks have. And so while I don't criticize any defense lawyers for saying, we'll just take regular PBJ and go about our way, in the long run, these drug court programs do so much more to help the clients, in their life forever, as opposed to just this one snapshot. With that, I'll put all this away. With me today is Jess Pilarski, who you heard about. She'll tell you a little bit about district court, some of the differences, but we already heard quite a bit.
Good morning. I'm Jessica Boritz, formerly Pilarski.
Sorry. You still have Pilarski in one of your.
It's on my email title because I made the mistake of not changing that.
Okay.
So I work with Judge Davis and I handle our district court adult recovery court program. So I don't really have much else to add because Judge Davis covered everything. But I guess just to piggyback on what Scott said, from my perspective as a prosecutor, kind of putting on this new hat in this different type of arena, it is a pretty eye-opening experience. For the 2 cases that have been successful, I've really been convinced that it can work. Essentially, kind of the way that it plays out is that every other week we meet as a team. We have an informal meeting with us, the judge, the panel attorney, the case managers, the probation agent. We've had the peer recovery specialist for one of the participants tune in. We have an informal discussion about the participant, the progress they're making, what they might need, any sanctions that might be necessary because that's come up a time or two. And we kind of have come up with a game plan of what to do in court. And then in court, the participant comes, we have the formal hearing. We discuss all of this on the record and kind of address the next steps going forward. for the two individuals that I've been a part of for their journey, it's been definitely a very eye-opening experience. You know, you come in as a prosecutor, you want to hold people responsible, you know, actions have consequences and all of that. This program has shown me that there are other ways if the people are willing to do the work. It's hard. They have to come to court every other week. That's been a struggle sometimes. There's work schedules that have to be worked around. There's children. They're getting drug tested twice a week. They're meeting with case managers twice a week. They're meeting with us twice a week. It's intense. But from seeing two different women go through this program from the beginning to the end and seeing how it's changed, truly changed their lives, I can attest, and I was a skeptic, I can attest that if they do the work, it does work. So, you know, that's really what I have to add to this, because Judge Davis really covered everything else. Yeah, that's what I've got to add.
So one thing to also remember is, again, these are specialty courts. If you go to a district court docket in Towson, and it's just a regular criminal docket, I can tell you, after the client hears the word guilty, the first thing out of every judge's mouth is, counsel, tell me what your client's problem is. And, you know, and that's when we discuss mental health, alcohol abuse, drug abuse. And really, those three end up covering a lot of the folks that make up the 30,000 cases we do a year in our district court. And every judge will ask that question and then try and craft the regular probation, not drug court, but regular probation around trying to help the person with those problems. And that's also done in the circuit court. It's just a little more serious up there. But in district court, like I said, with 30,000 cases, you're talking about, you know, probably 25,000 people a year in Baltimore County alone, who a judge is going to say, what's your problem? What's the client's problem? And so these drug courts and these specialty courts are very important. They serve a great purpose, but it's being addressed in just about every case that we handle in Baltimore County. So, and that's what happens when you go fifth. Go to fifth.
Perfect. Any questions for the state's attorney?
I have a comment. I thank you for your support of the special court programs. We get a lot of referrals from the state's attorney's office. So
Good to hear.
very, very good for both programs, mental health and.
Oh, yeah. Whole mental health is a whole different issue.
It is, but we get referrals and we're
It's
great.
important to have this.
Yeah.
Jim, I think you have an update, but not related to substance.
Not related to substance, but after hearing Scott, I feel like I have to say. You want to see all the time. So in regards to drug treatment court, I am such a huge proponent of it. I love both the courts in terms of what we can do. Now in this report, it is tougher. I don't know how to say it, and that we had these discussions because of the lower level types of comments that we're dealing with. Is having a person say, "Yeah, I'm going to submit myself. I'm coming in every 2 weeks and doing that." It is harder to get that person on board than it is in circuit court. It just is. And I know the attorneys, when they're assessing that, they're kind of talking to the clients about those types of things when they're making those decisions and guiding them through that. So that is kind of where we are in regards to it. I am a super strong proponent. I love the graduations. I've been to the district court graduations. I've been to the circuit court graduations. It really does make you go, this is what it's about. So like a salmon, I like to swim upstream. I'm not going to talk about drug court or drugs. I'm going back to the topic that we had before. So it's been an update. I presented last time on mental health and the ISTs, incompetent to stand trial. 3106 basically says if a person is not being competent to stand trial, they go into a different type of role. They go into basically a hold to go into a mental health hospital. We've had some updates recently. There's been litigation that Office of Public Defender has been involved in, both the district court and both the circuit courts, in which we're trying to get the Department of Health, the Maryland Department of Health, to be, I don't know what the word is. I think they are trying. I just think it's so many years behind, and I don't see an end in sight that we've had to continue to push this issue. We originally, years ago, filed contempts. Contempts don't work because anyone that understands contempt law, it has to be a willful failure. And it's really hard for the defense attorneys, for the prosecutor, for anyone to say it's willful. I don't think it's willful. I think it's basically they have chosen not to address the issue as much as they should have. But it's a really high burden for us to get over both the district and circuit courts. We ran into issues when we tried to litigate those. A new case came out, Department of Health versus Myers, which has basically given us light that there's another avenue, a direct filing against the department. So we have filed statutory enforcement actions to request for sanctions against the Department of Health. And we've been successful both in the district court with Judge Davis and also with Judge Pecora. Judge Davis has recently ordered sanctions against the department to try to enforce compliance of about $28,000 that's continuing to run at $140 a day per person. A lot of that has to do with what the testimony of Mr. Sirleaf and Ms. Smith were when they came into court. When they testified about the issues, and it's really sobering. When we hear what Department of Corrections has to deal with when it comes to people, when you're talking about horrible conditions that the staff are working with, that other inmates are with, even the person that is suffering from the issue. And it's really kind of sobering to hear that people are having to endure that. So obviously we have to push and we have to keep pushing on this. In the circuit court, Judge Pecora has ordered sanctions against the department in the amount of $1,000 a day. In the first group of filings, that amounted to about $500,000. In the second group of filings, that is still ongoing, beginning to June 4th. We're accumulating those at $1,000 a day in those two cases. That money is now being diverted according to what Judge Pecora has ordered. I know Judge Davis, we hadn't talked about this at the last hearing, but I anticipate us doing it at the next hearing. Would be to have that money diverted into the Baltimore County Behavioral Health Administration. What I am proposing, what I'm asking, is that we come together as a group and figure out ways that we can use this money to basically help people that are suffering from these types of issues. I think the one case that it just brings out in my head are these lower level cases where people are going into the 7-Eleven. I was talking to the chief about this. The person literally went into the 7-Eleven to buy a cup of coffee. They've been trespassed out of that 7-Eleven before, clearly mental health issues. Police officer comes back, arrests the person, not only for filing trespass, but for theft of coffee. The person paid $2 for a $2.04 cup of coffee. They're arrested. There's nowhere for this person to go. That person is then held in the county detention center. They're not competent to stand trial, so you're basically having them wait to get into a bed. I wish I could say that is the only person that we have like that. We have people calling 911 incessantly because they're suffering from mental health issues. I know the department, I know everyone is dealing with this chronic issue that we're seeing time and time and time again. We don't have a handle on how we can address this. I do think that there needs to be a look at mobile crisis. Is this something mobile crisis can do? And I know we need to fund that better. I know we need to find out ways to enhance that protection or enhance that service. I think that we need to come up with some type of diversionary stuff. When I talked to Scott about this, and he doesn't like the D word a lot of times when I talk to him about it. But it is something I think that we need to look at collectively as to how we can take this lower groups of people struggling really low level stuff. And instead of putting them in the jails, we find programs, find services, try to get them connected to groups, whether it's peer mentors, whether it can be beds, we need various things. And I'm asking us collectively. I just want to give everyone an update.
So just a quick follow-up on that. I have had conversations with a lot of people in the state government going pretty high up telling them that we need another lower level mental health facility in Baltimore County. Gee, I wonder where we can build it. Maybe, Spring Grove, So, I can't tell you how many times Jim has sent me an email saying, can you check this case? So-and-so's been in for 89 days and his maximum sentence is 90 days. And then, I go to Jess and say, can you check this out? Next thing you know, the next day she null processes it because she has to. And then they're back at the 7-Eleven and out of your jail. So, this is a problem. It's a statewide problem, but I'm starting to believe we need to come up with a county solution. Anybody who knows anybody who has any power, you should discuss this with them.
I can say on my part, I have.
And I know.
I think we all know this is a very complicated topic. I think everyone here has kind of done their individual parts as much as we can at this point, but I do think we can revisit this topic conveniently. We don't have a topic assigned next. I know we already did our presentations on mental health, but I think, our goal with this group was to really effectuate change where it needs to happen. So I think we can kind of revisit this topic. In what format, we'll have to figure that out because I'm not sure the whole group, a conversation is easy in that format, but we'll think about for October how we can revisit this topic and see what we can do as a group to actually move the needle on this
You
issue.
can call the topic solutions.
There we go. Thank you. With that said, again, we haven't set the topic for October, but I will follow up in email and see what solutions we can address. We are not having an August meeting. That's on here, but I just wanted to make sure everyone heard that. And the sign-in sheet, I think, is over here. We're going to do updates real quick for anyone who has an update. And I know we are over time. So, Judge, I think you've had one.
I did. I just wanted to say to everybody, we were very pleased last month, May the 22nd, to put forth our very first Schools in the Court program. We did that in Catonsville District Court. It was an opportunity for 3 schools to come to the Catonsville District Court, have a chance to see how choices you make, spontaneous sometimes, can result in consequences. The choice to jump in a car with a bunch of friends you don't really know after the party's over, we're going someplace, maybe we're not going someplace, and all of a sudden there's the blue light special behind the car gets pulled over and we find out that there's drugs in the car, or there's a handgun in the car, or there's something else in the car that some young folks don't always think about when they're making those choices. So I want to thank the police department again. Chief, thank you so much. We had the K-9 unit there. We had folks from the mobile crisis unit there, some of the officers who work in that. We had other officers who were there who did a mock traffic stop, and we had the K-9 dog go around, and the kids were so excited. I want to thank Scott and Jessica. They were both present for this. Jim Dills, I know that Gail was there to participate on behalf of the Public Defender's Office. So mobile crisis unit, shock trauma was there. We had some guest speakers who talked about their life experiences when somebody jumped in a car who was too drunk to drive and sadly ran it into head on at 60 miles an hour, a tree, and suffered going through shock trauma and all of what it takes to help somebody survive that and be able to talk to the young folks. So we are planning already to do this again next year when the fall semester starts at our high schools, and Judge Marsha Russell and Judge Kevin Wiggins, they were the 2-point people who pulled this all together. Maria and her staff was great in assisting us. So I just want to thank everybody who was involved in that and let you know that this will be ongoing, and we may be reaching out to more of you to participate in our next series of programs. So that was all I wanted to
Thank you.
announce.
Thanks for the update. And Judge Davis, an update from you?
Oh, no.
Oh, just that you were presenting.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Any other updates?
I just wanted to add, mobile crisis response and mobile crisis was brought up. I just want to make sure everybody here knows that we are in the process through the health department of working with a consultant about a crisis stabilization, crisis receiving center. So that should help in terms of filling one gap, but it's not going to fill the gap of ultimately where do people go to get treatment. I know a number of you were probably invited to consult with them, to give some input with them. If you have specific ideas, you can reach out to me and I can connect you with the consultant. But their timeline is that they're going to be putting together a report that will come in first draft to us in August. final draft by October, at which point things like square footage, staffing, location, all of that will be in recommendation form. And then it will be incumbent upon the county to make a decision in terms of what the next step is. So again, one piece of the continuum, but not, it's not going to solve everything.
Thank you. Any other updates? Okay. Any other topics that anyone would like to see brought before the CJCC, please email me because we don't have anything assigned again for October. I think we should look at solutions, especially related to mental health challenges, but any other topics that anyone's interested in, please let me know. And do we have a motion to close? A second.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? All right. Thanks so much.